You're listening to Keith Sports News. Hello, welcome to a special Saturday edition of KSN. I want to apologize for doing this one day later. It's because, I was gonna, like I would usually record these episodes the night before I release them the following day. So you know how my episodes are usually on Mondays and Fridays, meaning that my recordings would be on Sunday and Thursday night. Well, I was going to do this on Thursday night, but I was running out of time, and I also had to do a big update on my laptop, and it took quite some time. And I was working on other stuff, mainly other videos for my main channel. But this episode, I really could have recorded this on Tuesday or Wednesday night, but for some reason I didn't. I decided to wait until, the regular Thursday night before I go to bed. And I just didn't have the time to do it. But better late than never, as they say. So I'll try not to let this happen too much. But I think maybe throughout the year it might be like this sometimes. But most of the episodes will be on Mondays and Fridays. Okay? Now, since this is a special Saturday edition of KSN, first of all, the shirt that I'm wearing, I mentioned my main channel. Look, my favorite game, Trucker. You mother trucker. Yep, American Truck Simulator, because the next day, Sunday, February the 2nd, will be the 9th anniversary of that game, okay? And I will be doing a big stream of that game. Alright. So, what is this episode about? Well, if you read the title, you know how I usually would play the music at the beginning of my episodes, but nope. This is kind of a sad episode, or, unlucky for a city of sports. And this is, coincidentally, this is unlucky number 13, this episode. Unlucky 13. So let's talk about the unlucky sports for the city of Buffalo, New York, or as we like to say, the Buffalo Curse. That's right, after what happened the previous weekend of the Buffalo Bills of the National Football League once again failing to beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. This time, it was to go to the Super Bowl. So, I apologize. I have some. Let me apologize in advance. I have some allergies, so I guess that's also unlucky for me as well. But oh well, I'll get through this. All right. Since there really isn't much to talk about for this weekend's sports, there's a little bit, but I purposely decided to do this episode about me talking about the Buffalo sports curse. Not just in football, okay? But, it really mainly is the football team, the American football team of the National Football League, all right? So, I'm going to talk about that first, because that's the main topic I want to talk about. So, if you're a Buffalo sports fan, you probably shouldn't be listening to this video. Alright, this is based on what I know. For Buffalo sports. Speaking of Buffalo, hey, we got Buffalo Wild Wings, the restaurant. They're big into sporting events, you know. So, does Buffalo, New York even have Buffalo Wild Wings? I don't know. So, the Buffalo sports curse. It's very unfortunate. It's such a shame. It's such a shame that, on what happened this past weekend, Buffalo Bills once again failing to beat the team that they beat in the regular season, but they can't beat them again in the playoffs. You know? And obviously, the majority of America was rooting for the Buffalo Bills. Well, for a few reasons. Number one, that team has never won a Super Bowl. And number two, people are sick of the Kansas City Chiefs because they are a dynasty for the past couple of years. I get it. Now, I'm not a big NFL fan, so it doesn't bother me that Kansas City Chiefs once again is in the Super Bowl. But I think I mentioned this in a previous episode where I didn't see the game, okay? I did not see the game of the AFC Championship game. I didn't see it. Two reasons. Number one, the game was on CBS. Not a fan of CBS sports in general. But I gotta say, about 10 years ago, the NFL on CBS was awesome. Now it sucks, in my opinion. It's not the same. And number two, I knew Kansas City would win because the game was at Arrowhead Stadium. And this has happened multiple times where the Buffalo Bills cannot beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. So I'm like, oh boy, these two teams again. How many more times are they going to face each other in the playoffs? Well, Buffalo's 0 for 3, so they're going to be 0 for 4 against the Kansas City Chiefs, and that is what happened. They are 0 for 4. The Buffalo curse continues. All right. Excuse me while I get a Kleenex tissue here. I feel bad for you fans, man. I feel bad. But I wonder if, like, the older Buffalo fans that have been a fan for, like, decades. I'm speaking to the older fans out there for Buffalo. You're probably not you probably weren't surprised that they lost again against the Kansas City Chiefs. But obviously you want to think positive, right? So, oh my gosh. I'm looking at my TV. It's playing MLB Network, and there's a commercial about this big buffalo coin. What a weird coincidence. Here, show you real quick. If you're watching the video, look, MLB Network, and it was showing a buffalo coin, a big coin. Okay. I'm recording this at 2:32 a.m. right before I'm gonna go to sleep here, so... Okay, where was I? I got sidetracked. Don't you hate when that happens? Okay, let me say this. My father is actually a Buffalo Bills fan because a long time ago, he grew up in Buffalo. He grew up in the city of Buffalo. And you know how it snows there a lot? Like crazy, and sometimes they'll play in a big snow game. That's exciting to watch, you know, a big snow game. And he's seen it all pretty much. It's, you know, he's seen all of the failures this franchise has had. So this is what I know. So we got the what was it? The 70s, the O.J. Simpson era, and I know O.J. Simpson passed away last year, and we all know if you heard of this man, you don't think of O.J. Simpson the player. You think of O.J. Simpson after his career ended. But the 1970s, he was playing for the Buffalo Bills. He was a great player, right? Okay. So I believe this team has won. So before the Super Bowl existed, this team, I believe, won a championship, but it was not the Super Bowl. So back a long time ago, there was the NFL and the AFL, two different football leagues. Okay. All right. And the Super Bowl, okay, this year, this is Super Bowl 59. Okay. So Super Bowl 1 was what, 58 years ago? So we're going back to 1967, or I should say the 1966 season. Okay? The first few years, you had the NFL champion against the AFL champion, and that is how the Super Bowl was born. Okay? Then a few years later, I believe it was 1970, because, I like to read a lot of articles of the history of some of my favorite sports leagues or whatever. The 1970, the AFL and the NFL merged. Okay? So I don't know why it's not called AFL anymore. I guess they just want to keep it NFL, because AFL stands for American Football League. But anyways, the Buffalo Bills were their first year, I believe. Okay, I'm looking at it. 1960 was their first year. And this team, before the Super Bowl existed, this team has won two league championships, I believe. It says on Wikipedia. All right, 1964, 1965. Yep, okay, they won the AFL championship back-to-back seasons. And a few years later, the Super Bowl was born, okay? All right. So yeah, O.J. Simpson was the face. It says O.J. Simpson was the face of the Buffalo Bills franchise for most of the 1970s, breaking the NFL single-season rushing record in 1973. All right. Okay. This team was really good back then, the old days. All right. So this was, this team, I really like their uniforms and their old uniforms. I think they have one of the best uniforms in National Football League history. All right. So yeah, back in the 1970s, they had the old Buffalo logo. I think they'll wear their throwback uniforms once a year. They might, I think. So, but anyways, oh wow, I'm looking at their season records of the 70s, and they were actually pretty bad. But O.J. Simpson was in some of those years. Oh, they got better in the mid 70s, 9-5 record, but they did not make the playoffs. Back then, they played 14 games instead of 17. All right, because I'm pretty sure, yeah, there wasn't 32 teams in the league back then. I don't know how many there were, but so I'm going through their season records. The late 70s, they got pretty bad. 1980, okay, the early 80s, they were pretty good. All right. And then they got, wow, 2-14. 1984 and 1985. In 86, they were 4-12. 87, 7-8. 1988, they were 12-4. Okay, so what happened? They lost the AFC Championship game that year. Okay. And then we get to the 90s. I guess you could say their their first golden era, I guess, meaning they were a really good team. 1990 season, 13-3. They won the divisional playoffs against the Miami Dolphins, 44-34. They won the AFC Championship game in a slaughter against the Raiders. Was it Oakland? No, it was the Los Angeles Raiders back then. 51-3. Okay. And then they lost the Super Bowl. They were probably the heavy favorite against the New York Giants. What happened? They were supposed to kick the game-winning field goal, and wide right. Wide right. What's that kicker's name? I'm trying to look here. What's that kicker's name? I believe he never kicked ever again after that terrible loss. What's his name? The quarterback was Jim Kelly. What's the kicker's name? I think his first name is Scott. I believe that's his first name. Norwood. Scott Norwood, I believe that's his name. What a damn shame. Okay. Somehow you have to... Next season, 1991. Oh, 13-3. Okay. So, really good team. They went back to the Super Bowl, and they lost again to the Washington Redskins at the time. 1992, 11-5. Okay. Not as good as the last two seasons, but they made it back to the playoffs. All right. Oh my gosh, this was when they had that ultimate comeback against the Houston Oilers in the wild card playoffs. Wow, they were the Buffalo Bills in that game overcame a 35-3 deficit to beat the Houston Oilers 41-38 in overtime. Okay. Big win for them. The divisional playoffs, they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-3. In the AFC Championship game, they beat their rivals, the Miami Dolphins, 29-10. So, okay, they're back in the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. Can they finally win it? Nope. You had to face Troy Aikman and the Dallas Cowboys, and they lost 52-17. Wow. 1993, they went 12-4, and they went back to the Super Bowl. Oh, who did they beat to go to the Super Bowl? The Kansas City Chiefs, 30-13. Okay, you're in a Super Bowl rematch against Troy Aikman and the Dallas Cowboys. You can't lose 4 in a row. You can't lose 4 Super Bowls in a row. And this game was not close. 30-13, Dallas Cowboys, Super Bowl champions. And that is what they call the Four Falls of Buffalo. The Four Falls of Buffalo. They really should have won the first Super Bowl appearance that they made against the New York Giants. They really should have won that game. Going to 4 Super Bowls in a row is really impressive. That is not easy. Going to 4 consecutive Super Bowl appearances, But losing all four, I don't know if that's ever happened in the NHL, the MLB, and the NBA. I don't think so. Or even the CFL. 1994, what happened? The downfall began. The team went 7-9. They did not make the playoffs. 1995, they were 10-6. They made back to the playoffs, but they lost in the playoffs in a one-sided game, it seems like, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 40-21. 1996, they also went 10-6. They went back to the playoffs, but they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars in the wild card game by a field goal. 1997, they went 6-10. In 98, they went 10-6, but they lost the wild card playoffs against their division rivals, the Miami Dolphins. 1999, they went 11-5, and then this is where they had that Music City Miracle game against the Tennessee Titans. And I believe after that, it got worse for many years. In 2000, they went 8-8. 2001, 3-13. 02, 8-8. 03, 6-10. 04, 9-7. You think that's enough to make the playoffs? Nope, that was not enough. In 05, they went 5-11. In 06, they went 7-9. In 07, 7-9. Again, 7-9 in 2008. Their 50th season in 2009, they went 6-10. In 2010, they went 4-12. In 2011, 6-10. 2012, 6-10 again. 2013, another 6-10 season. 2014, 9-7. Was that enough to make the playoffs? Nope. 2015, 8-8. Not enough to get in the playoffs. 2016, 7-9. 2017, 9-7. Was that enough that time? Yes. They finally made back to the playoffs after like 18 years. But they lost to the Jacksonville Jaguars in a low-scoring game, 10-3. 2018, 6-10. 2019, 10-6. Okay. Finally, a good season since the your Super Bowl appearances back in the 90s. 10-6. You lost in the wild card playoff again against the Houston Texans in overtime. The COVID year, 13-3. You went back to the AFC Championship game. Oh, who did they lose to? Kansas City Chiefs. 2021, they went 11-6. They lost to the Kansas City Chiefs in that crazy overtime game. 2022, 13-3. It was really a great season until that Damar Hamlin incident. That was very sad. And then that was like right before their playoff began. And they lost to the Cincinnati Bengals at home 27-10. And that was the year the Cincinnati Bengals went to the Super Bowl. 2023, they went 11-6, but what happened again? You lost to the Kansas City Chiefs by a field goal in the playoffs, and the same exact thing happened in their last season. Yeah, this team just can't go all the way, you know? It just doesn't seem like they can. Now, this question popped in my mind. Would you rather see Josh Allen, the Buffalo quarterback, win a Super Bowl on a different team, or would you rather see the Buffalo Bills winning a Super Bowl without Josh Allen. Let me tell you, Josh Allen is one hell of a quarterback. You see, Matthew Stafford, that happened to him. For many years, he was on the Detroit Lions, and he just can't. He had a lot of bad seasons with the team. Great quarterback on a terrible team back then. You know? So, then he finally went to a different team, to the LA Rams, and he won a Super Bowl. Maybe the same thing will happen to Josh Allen. Maybe when his contract expires, he'll go to a different team. I don't know what team, but it's... And listen, I was listening to Shine on Sports with Adam Shine, and he's saying that next season I think the AFC East teams will get better. I think New England's going to get slightly better. The New York Jets, who knows what's going to happen to that team. I think the Miami Dolphins will be a tough team to beat, even though the Dolphins didn't make the playoffs this year. But, see, man, this I feel like this was supposed to be the year where the Buffalo Bills could have finally beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And I heard someone was saying, well, what if the game was in Buffalo? Well, listen, maybe Buffalo should have won more games and then they would get that home game. You know? I know Kansas City had a lot of close wins, I get that, but a win's a win. A win is a win. Alright? So, if you want to get the home field advantage, win more games in the regular season. That's all I can say. So, yeah, part of me, yeah, I wanted them to go to the Super Bowl, but I knew they wouldn't. Especially when you can't beat the dynasty team, the back-to-back Super Bowl champions, perhaps soon to be the three-peat champions. We'll talk more about the big game next week here, but and also Buffalo has a National Hockey League team, the Buffalo Sabres. Did that team win any championships? Nope. They were in one. But I think they got robbed. I think they got robbed in that Stanley Cup final against the Dallas Stars. And that team, for some reason, listen, they love hockey up there, up in Buffalo, but for some reason that team can't win. That team can't make the playoffs. That team's been bad for many, many years, and a lot of people still go to their games because they just love hockey so much. But man, that is a curse. One more. You know, the owner of both the football team and the hockey team, his name is Terry Pegula, and he has a daughter named Jessica Pegula, and she is a professional tennis player. She's a great player in the top 10. But for some reason, she cannot win a Grand Slam title. She was in the U.S. Open final last year, but she lost. The sports city of Buffalo is cursed, man. Buffalo Bills can't beat the Kansas City Chiefs to go back to the Super Bowl. The Buffalo Sabres, they can't make the playoffs at all, even though half the teams make the playoffs every year. And then you got Jessica Pegula, the daughter of the owner of both the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres. Great tennis player in the top 10, but she can't win one of the 4 Grand Slams. That's all I gotta say, man. So, kind of a different episode I wanted to talk about. We'll talk more on the big game on Monday and Friday. So thank you for watching or listening to KSN episode 13. Yeah, what a episode this was. Unlucky. They're just unlucky for unlucky episode 13. What do y'all think? If you want to answer my question, I said, would you rather have Josh Allen winning a Super Bowl on a different team or the Buffalo Bills winning a Super Bowl without Josh Allen? I'm going to ask my father that question. I don't know what he would say. I guess he would say Buffalo Bills without Josh Allen because he's been a Buffalo fan for many, many years. I mean, this team will be back, but are they gonna face the Kansas City Chiefs again in the regular season? Are they really? Next season? They're gonna do that on purpose, huh? You know, I saw a comment that says, the Buffalo Bills, they ended the Kansas City Chiefs' perfect season because the Chiefs were undefeated when they lost to Buffalo. But then the rematch happened. You know, here we are again. Alright, folks, thank you for listening to KSN, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you for listening to Keith's Sports News.